Hey guys, in our devotionals today, we come to the end of the book of Deuteronomy and we have one final test for Moses. And this was the test of finishing well. At the end of Moses' life, God reflected on Moses' life, and I'm sure he assured him of the purpose that he had served. He had done well, but he had failed at one particular point. Now this is the test of really finishing well. Finishing well means that we obey God. Finishing well means also that we don't try and touch God's glory. Now Moses, back in verse 52, it tells you that God said to Moses, "Moses, you're about to die. I want you to go to Mount Nebo, and there you will go to be with me." And in verse 50 he says this, 52, he says, "You will see the land only from a distance, but you will not enter the land." I wonder if that broke Moses' heart, because he had spent all those years dragging the children of Israel, promising them the promised land, and none of them got there except Joshua and Caleb, and got into the land. They all got to the edge, they looked in, but man, that generation kind of died in the wilderness, and Moses had witnessed this, and in his heart he must have so desired, "I want to be in the land," but he failed at one point. And I often think, God, is it really that important that you have to be so incredibly almost pedantic about every detail? Well, God is like that. Imagine if God had not been pedantic to the detail of creation, this place would be in chaos. And so God, because he is God, has to live out his own law. And when Moses failed in Numbers chapter 20, God says to him, verse 51, "This is because you broke faith. This is why you will not go into the promised land. You will watch it from a distance." He told Moses, "Go to the mountain, you will die on the mountain, and from that mountain you will get a glimpse into the land." In Numbers 20 it says, "This is because you broke faith with me at the waters of Meribah Kadesh. You did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites." People, you never want to touch the glory of God. God is glorious in his holiness. And when we mess with the holiness of God by thinking we can do it our own way, God won't mind if I just bend the rules a little bit for myself. Well, apparently God does mind when you bend the rules a little bit to accommodate yourself. God is loving, God is kind, but he's also a law maker and a law giver and a principle maker and a principle giver, and he will never violate his own law or his own principle. He cannot, because he is God, and he will always uphold his law. Even if your name is Moses, do not touch the glory or the holiness of God. Never take credit that is not yours. Never take glory that is not yours, that should be deflected to God. People will give certain people some credit. I don't think there's too much wrong with that. But as long as that credit remains where it is, but the glory always goes to God for whatever happens. Do not touch the glory of God. And God is being faithful to himself in all of this. Now, just as I close this little section here, I want to tell you there's two dimensions to learning. As we've reflected on the book of Deuteronomy and the tests that Moses had to go through, and now as he comes to this test of finishing well, there are two lessons that we learn, two dimensions. You can either learn from life, or you can learn from listening. And Moses, if he were to speak to you today, he'd say, learning from life, there's some tough lessons out there. Learning from life, you're going to have to learn from the mistakes you make. If only you had learned from listening. This is a great way to learn. You learn from the mistakes of others. You learn from the fact that you have read what Moses did or did not do, and you're saying, man, I'm going to resolve not to do or to do that. At the end of Moses' life, as he looked into the promised land, I wonder if his heart wasn't full of some regrets, to think, man, if only I hadn't touched the glory of God, if only I hadn't struck the rock as I did, if only I'd listened to God and obeyed to the detail, then I would be inheriting the land as well. But I'm sure there must have been some regret that went through his mind. And I wonder if one day when we get to heaven, they say there'll be a lot of lovely stuff there, but I wonder if we won't, when we reflect maybe on the lives that we have lived down here, if there won't be a measure of regret to say, if only I'd obeyed God better, if only I'd listened, if only I hadn't waited for Vesuvius to erupt before I learned the lesson of my life, If only I listened to the word of God and obeyed it. I'm certainly going to have a few regrets. I wish I'd obeyed better. But at the same time, I'm going to glory in the wonder of His love for me and His understanding of our imperfection. But it does not mean, just because He loves us, that we abuse His love and think that we could do it our own way. God's way is always the best. So people, as we finish the book of Deuteronomy today, let's learn by listening and not just by living, because that's probably the better way to do it. Go and have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.